Welcome to the deep dive. We talk a lot about the cost of achieving big goals, right?
Hmm.
What we have to put in,
Mm-hmm.
the price we pay.
But what if that idea applies even to God? What if there's a specific price God needs paid to get his own ultimate plan done?
That's a heavy concept.
It really is. And it's a core idea in the material we're diving into today, a really powerful 1974 message from Sun Myung Moon called The Price of the Dispensation.
Okay.
So our mission here is to unpack this vision he lays out for global restoration. What's the price demanded? How does he read history? And crucially, the super urgent specific timeline he set to basically perfect the world by a deadline.
And the foundation for all of this, which you really need to grasp from the start, is that this whole restoration business is necessary because of loss, because of the human fall.
Right.
The source argues, look, if the fall hadn't happened, there'd be no need for any price, any indemnity. Human growth would have just have naturally.
Yeah.
Like a healthy tree just bearing food automatically, no struggle needed. So the fall wasn't just like a slip-up. It fundamentally broke the system.
Exactly. It made the path rough. Human growth, according to this text, is now barred and scarred. We're like, oh, wild, unhealthy branches. Our inner nature, the sap, is off. It's corrupted.
Okay, so broken branches, corrupted sap. How do you fix that?
Well, that brings us to the central metaphor he uses, engrafting. Humanity, the wild tree, needs to be engrafted to the true tree.
Which represents...
God's perfect will, basically, centered on the Messiah.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, because the way he describes this engrafting, it kind of flips the usual script, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's counterintuitive. Normally you think of the flawed person trying to attach to the divine.
Right.
But here, the text is very specific. It's the true branch, the Messiah, God's perfect lineage that gets cut off, sacrificed, really. And it's engrafted onto the wild tree, onto fallen humanity. God makes the first move, pays that price.
Wow. Okay. So God initiates by sacrificing the perfect branch, but what about the wild tree, us? What do we need to do to receive it?
Ah, well, that's where the human price comes in. Preparation is key. It requires absolute self-denial.
Meaning
You have to deny yourself. Chop off all the bad branches on your own tree, your fallen nature, your bad habits, all of it. And even more, you've got to achieve what the text calls common sap.
Common sap. Like your inner nature has to match.
Exactly. Your whole inner being, your motivation, your growth element has to become totally compatible, totally aligned with God's will, with that true branch being grafted in. It's deep internal transformation, not just going through the motions.
That sounds incredibly demanding, almost impossible for most people.
It's a very high standard. And when the source looks back through history using this lens, well, it sees basically a trail of failures.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. Talk about Israel.
Right. The chosen nation, the first Israel, they failed this test big time. They couldn't receive Jesus, the true olive tree, because, as the text puts it, they were not sane and sound. Their own internal trees weren't ready, not prepared for that graft.
And it doesn't stop with ancient Israel.
Yeah.
The critique extends to Christianity too, right?
Yeah, the second Israel, Christianity is seen as having also become corrupted over the last 2,000 years.
So the implication is huge.
It is. It means the Lord of the Second Advent, whoever and whenever that is, faces the exact same massive problem Jesus did. There's no prepared ground, no ready individual, no family, no nation, nothing.
The whole foundation needs to be rebuilt from zero.
From scratch. Again.
Okay, so this leads to a really important shift in perspective, doesn't it? Away from just personal salvation.
Definitely. The source draws a sharp contrast. You have the common Christian focus at the time, which it characterizes as being mostly about my salvation, me getting into the kingdom of heaven. And it contrasts that with what it says is the Messiah's actual mission, saving the whole world, not just individuals.
And why is that distinction so critical?
Because, according to this view, if that perfect true branch gets grafted onto a tree that's only thinking about saving itself, only focused on its own personal heaven, the growth won't be right. It will not be wholesome. That self-focus actually clashes with the Messiah's cosmic, world-level job.
Which brings us to this idea of the zero-point dilemma. How does that connect?
It connects directly to that self-focus. The dilemma is part of being fallen. We're stuck in the middle, neither totally God's nor totally Satan's, and we fool ourselves.
How so?
We tend to think our own personal zero point, that line between good and evil, selflessness and selfishness. We assume it's safely on God's side. We think, oh, my motives are basically good.
But the source says we're usually wrong about where that line actually is.
Exactly. The Messiah's view of that zero point is likely way different from ours. So how do you make sure you're really aligning with God, not just your own subtly corrupted desires?
What's the solution offered?
Radical self-denial. That's presented as the only sure way. Deny yourself completely. Try to lose yourself, in a sense, to find that true objective center.
And there's this interesting idea about doing the opposite.
Yes. Because fallen habits are so ingrained, so subtly satanic, the Messiah might often tell people to do the complete opposite of what they're used to.
Like an intentional disruption.
Right. If you always stand, maybe he says sit. If you always sit, maybe he says move. It's designed to shock you out of those ingrained, potentially fallen patterns and assumptions. Break the mold.
And the Messiah figure himself has to embody this total alignment.
100%. Chosen from God's lineage, God living in him, total alignment with God's will. And his key task then is to raise up a group, a foundation, that can also achieve this extreme self-denial.
A group focused only on world salvation.
Exactly. Not thinking about their own salvation at all. That collective foundation is non-negotiable. And the need to build it now is what fuels the incredible urgency you see running through the rest of this message.
Okay, so we shift from the inner price of self-denial to the time crunch, the historical price.
Yeah, the clock is ticking loudly. This idea of contracting history is wild.
Tell us about it.
The source says God wants to basically squish 6,000 years of restoration history down into just 60 years. And the 4,000 years since Abraham, compress that into 40. It's like history on fast forward.
That's intense acceleration.
But it gets even more focused. The real core of this intense period is shrinking the whole 6,000 years into just 21 years.
21 years. How is that broken down?
Into 3 7-year courses, roughly 1960 to 1980.
Okay.
The first 7 years, formation stage. The second 7, growth stage. And when this speech was given in 1974, they were being told they were right on the cusp of the final 7 years.
The perfection stage.
Right. Starting the next year, 1975, and meant to culminate around 1977.
So at 74, the message is, this is it, the final sprint, no time left.
Absolutely. And there's a non-negotiable deadline, 1980.
What happens if they miss it?
The source is stark. Failure to get this foundation for world restoration done by 1980 means the price gets higher, the suffering gets longer, and it could even mean widespread martyrdom, specifically mentioning the threat of communism.
Wow.
It frames the whole thing as this desperate 21-year race against destruction.
To manage this insane timeline, there has to be a strategy, right? A global plan.
Yes, a very specific one. It identifies 3 main global power blocks that are seen as collapsing: the communist bloc, the democratic bloc, and the religious bloc. The immediate urgent task is to win over, essentially defeat, communism.
And how do they plan to do that globally in such a short time?
By focusing efforts, like a targeted campaign. They identified 7 key nations: the U.S., England, France, Germany, Soviet Russia, Korea, and Japan.
The idea being?
Win those 7, and you can basically reap by nations, not just trying to get one person at a time. It's seen as the only way to gain the whole world quickly enough.
Okay, let's zoom in on the U.S. This speech was given in America, and the U.S. seems pretty central to this plan, but the assessment is harsh.
Oh, absolutely scathing. The U.S. is called a gigantic nation that's declining very rapidly, just plummeting.
Why? What are the reasons given?
Decadence, corruption, and specifically the youth seen as obsessed with the material side of things and just wanting to satisfy their animal instincts.
So the movement's job in America is what?
Stop the decline, turn it around, lift the whole nation up spiritually and morally. It's a rescue mission for America itself.
And tied into this is a very specific providential structure involving different racial groups. We need to be clear, this is the source's theological interpretation applied to race and history.
Yes, very important to state that. It uses the framework of Noah's family, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to assign roles.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So in this framework, the yellow race is put in the Shem position, the eldest son, their role, to be the reconciler between the black and white races, steering things towards a spiritual civilization.
Okay, then the black race.
They're assigned the Ham position, the second son. Their role is described as bearing the cross for the white race, specifically referencing Simon of Cyrene helping Jesus.
And what are they told to do in that role?
Explicitly, the source says they must not complain or criticize the white race. They have to keep bearing that cross patiently, without resistance, until their time for blessing comes.
That's a heavy burden placed there.
Extremely. And finally, the white race.
The Japheth position, the third son.
Right. Seen as blessed by God materially, But having misused that blessing to exploit the other races, the warning is severe. They are doomed to perish if they stay decadent and reject the movement's message. They're described as the smallest in number and the most corrupt.
This whole structure leads directly to a specific demand on American members, especially white members, doesn't it?
It does. Right now, in 1974, they are told point blank, you have to pay a greater price. You need to be trained more harshly, cut off all your old ties, your comfort, your self-contentment. You have to sacrifice more to save this declining nation.
And there's a threat attached if they don't step up,
Hmm.
particularly the white contingent in America.
A very immediate one. The timeline is incredibly tight. The source warns that if the white race, especially in the US, rejects the movement by 1977, maybe 78,
Yeah.
the whole providential mission shifts. It will move to another nation entirely. And explicitly, the black race will then unite with the movement and take the leadership position over the white race. A complete reversal of the established order is threatened.
So the stakes in America, right then, were seen as absolutely critical and immediate.
Couldn't be higher, especially within that compressed 1977-1980 window.
Okay, let's try to pull this all together.
Yeah.
If we synthesize this deep dive, the absolute core message, especially as they approached that final stretch, was that the price required now wasn't just 100%. It was more than 100% of whatever price anyone had paid before.
Right. Total self-denial, total investment, and this almost frantic urgency to hit that 1980 target. No holding back anything.
And connecting that back to the ultimate goal, why demand such an extreme price?
Because the payoff promised was equally extreme. The complete restoration of the world. Creating one human family under God. A literal physical reality with no wars, no fighting, no national borders. God's children moving freely everywhere. That's the vision justifying the sacrifice.
So, thinking about all this,
Mm-hmm.
what really stands out to you? Here's a movement in 1974 being told their goal is world salvation before personal salvation, and they have to cram 6,000 years of historical struggle into just 21 years,
Mm-hmm.
finishing by 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Given that intense pressure cooker timeline, what specific things happening in the world between, say, 74 and 80, the height of the Cold War, the energy crisis, Watergate's fallout, Vietnam ending, maybe instability in Iran,
Yeah.
what external events might they have pointed to and said, see, corruption is raging, the blocks are collapsing, this proves our deadline is real and we have to succeed now. It makes you wonder how much the external chaos of the late 70s fueled that internal sense of racing against time.